Hello. That's right, I made it, ladies and gentlemen. I made it through the night after talking about the Clintons, the Clinton cartel. I made it through the night, and I'm back with you. Thank you for joining me once again. Planet Hog here, coming back at you. And I hope everybody had a wonderful day. You know, something that was funny that happened yesterday was, so when I was doing my thumbnail for the episode, I realized that my numbers were off a little bit. For whatever reason, I duplicated, I think it was like 82 or 81, I don't remember what it was. But my numbers were off. So I went back to the website to do it, and it usually saves my last work there. So I went back to re-download it after I changed the number of the episode, and all of a sudden it just didn't download, right? So of all episodes, of course it would happen with the Clinton episode, right? And it just adds to that lore. Ooh. So then I clicked to refresh the page, and it's like page could not be displayed. I swear to God, it said page could not be displayed at this time. So I was like, oh man, that's interesting. But anyhow, so today we are going in a different direction, because today we're going to cover a story that didn't really get a lot of media play. It's certainly not on CNN or MSNBC or NBC or ABC or any of the usual suspects, right? We're talking about a mass shooting that happened this past weekend in good old Alabama. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are on the New York Post's website, and the title reads, "Black suspect's shooting spree that wounded 5 was motivated by race, per the detective." A black man accused in a 20-hour two-state shooting spree that wounded 5 strangers told cops he was motivated by race and intentionally targeted, quote, military-looking, end quote, white men he believed wronged him, police said. Justin Tyron Roberts, 39, was arrested Saturday by police in Columbus, Georgia, where cops say he wounded 4 people, including 2 white men, during separate attacks late Friday and Saturday afternoon. Roberts is also accused of shooting a white man in the back at a hotel in Phoenix City, Alabama, the Columbus Ledger-Inquirer reported. Detective Brandon Lockhart testified Monday that Roberts told police following his arrest that he had, quote, had to have, end quote, one victim who was shot in the back as he got into a car under the Oglethorpe Bridge in Columbus. Quote, basically, he explained throughout his life, specifically white males had taken from him, and also what he described as military-looking white males had taken from him. Lockhart testified, recalling what Roberts allegedly told investigators. Columbus Police Chief Freddie Blackman, that's a little on the nose, said Saturday that all of the victims were expected to recover. Investigators also found no evidence that Roberts knew any of the shooting victims, the Ledger-Inquirer reported. Roberts also claimed that the white men had been, quote, shooting at him in a wooded area with a slingshot. But police found no evidence to back up that assertion, Lockhart testified. Roberts, a convicted felon, was found with a Taurus 9mm pistol that had been stolen Thursday when he was arrested, Lockhart said. The alleged shooting spree started 1 day later at the Courtyard by Marriott Hotel in Phoenix City, where a man was hospitalized following the apparently random attack, Blackman said Saturday. Roberts fits the description of the gunman in the attack, and he's expected to face additional charges in Alabama, the Ledger-Inquirer reported. Hours later, 2 white males and a black female were shot elsewhere in Columbus. Roberts is charged with multiple counts of aggravated assault and gun charges in connection to being a convicted felon in that case, the newspaper reported. Roberts appeared in a court Monday to face charges in one of the shootings, and his public defender asked the judge to order that he undergo a mental health evaluation, claiming that Lockhart's testimony showed that the man is, quote, having delusions and a disconnect from reality, end quote, according to the report. The judge agreed and sent Roberts' charges of aggravated assault, using a gun to commit a crime, and being a convicted felon with a firearm to Muskogee Superior Court. Roberts, whose attorney pleaded not guilty on his behalf Monday, was ordered held without bond after a prosecutor cited the random shootings and his alleged racial motive. He's expected to appear for a preliminary hearing in one of the shootings Tuesday, the Ledger-Inquirer reported. Blackmun had earlier assured Columbus residents that its downtown business area was safe to visit, WRBL reported. Quote, "We want our citizens to know that there is no need to be in fear or be apprehensive of getting about," the police chief said. "We want everyone to continue to get out and know that we take this very seriously. Any incident, shooting incident, any crime that occurs in Columbus, we take it very seriously." And ladies and gentlemen, that is the end. So, oh man. Well, I think we start with the obvious. And that for the new people to Planet Hog, that is our official indicator of new racists being created. And there we go. Because if you think that, well, perhaps I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about this for the on its face. Obviously, they're already trying to fit this man for a straitjacket. Obviously, they're already going to paint a picture about how society has done him so wrong that this man, who's 39 goddamn years old, is a victim of white supremacy and therefore lashed out against his ephemeral attacker, right? He's striking out against this ethereal being that seems to be everywhere, that no one can ever seem to actually pinpoint. But it's coming. Don't worry, it's coming. Because I've talked about this before. If you don't think for every action there is an equal and opposing reaction applies to just more than science, well, it applies to people too. And I was thinking, not that this man is a victim and should be painted as a victim. That's not what I'm doing. I will say that right now, definitively, this man is not a victim. He is a perpetrator of violence and a felon at that. So how about, number one, how about we stop letting these fucking people out of jail? How about that? For all the mouthing that goes on about how hard our criminal justice system is, there seems to be a lot of stories of people who have like multiple felonies being let out. That doesn't really fit the bill for a hard criminal justice system. And I did an episode on this when I was talking about Russia's Black Dolphin prison. That got some mixed reviews from some folks. They're like, well, if you knew anything about American jails, you wouldn't be saying that. Well, I know what I see. And I know when I see people who are being rearrested who have a rap sheet, that rivals, I don't know, put your own metaphor there. People with, you'll hear he's got 13 felonies, he's got 20 felonies. Well, that sounds pretty lenient to me. And not for nothing, but how anyone that commits murder gets out of jail, how anyone that commits any of the flavors of murder that involve malice, right? How anyone who kills someone, whether it was even in heat of passion, how that person is allowed to continue their life is proof positive of a very lenient justice system. Because I don't care if they gave you 40 fucking years. The person that you killed has 0. So anything less than you losing your life in return is leniency. That aside, if we want to talk about this man being a victim of something, let's talk about him being a victim of critical race theory bullshit. Because he's obviously stupid enough to be susceptible to this. And yes, it does take a stupid person to be susceptible to it, because on its face, it does not make sense. So a person of average to above average intelligence, and obviously higher, can immediately see it for what it is. It's bullshit. It's just feel-good propaganda. But simpletons have a they're susceptible to this. And the man is clearly a simpleton because he couldn't even formulate a logical, he couldn't formulate a believable reason as to why he did it. He said white people were shooting him with slingshots from the trees. Who's in his fucking neighborhood? Dennis the fucking Menace? When was the last time you saw a white man with a slingshot? So obviously this is a world-class ignoramus because he couldn't even come up with a lie that seemed plausible. Slingshots. Really? That's what you're going to go with? I can imagine his attorney just staring at it. Slingshots? That's what we're going with? Okay. Oh, fuck. Okay. All right. Great. Yeah. No, it's great. It's wonderful. Please don't kill me. But talking about CRT, critical race theory. I'm old enough now to remember growing up back in the 90s when all these, I remember when Mortal Kombat came out and the hell that raised. People were up in arms about this game that had blood and people killing each other and this and that. And I was also there for the conversation about gangster rap and how, oh my God, it's making kids violent and they're going to gang culture and they're doing this and that. And people talked about how it's subtle conditioning. Same thing with the video games. Oh, we're desensitizing people to violence and people are getting more animalistic and this and that. And so following that same stream of thought, wouldn't critical race theory make people quixotic? Wouldn't critical race theory make people see enemies where they don't exist? Especially when you're telling a specific group of people that they are a perpetual victim, that no matter what they do, they will always be lesser than, and the people who are doing it are these people right here. What do you expect to happen from a simpleton? So maybe this is as good a time as any for everybody to kind of, jettison any lingering ties to this insane notion of critical race theory. Not to mention, there was another shooting this past weekend, mass shooting in Austin, Texas. I'll put the link for that as well as the link to this article down in the description for you. But there was another mass shooting involving a black person perpetuating it. And what was interesting about it was at the time, the newspaper did not reveal the ethnicity of the shooter. Even in doing some light research online, it's very hard to find a picture of the guy. It's well suppressed. I was using Bing. Google tends to suppress more than Bing, so I wouldn't think it would be over on Google, but you never know. But that's how you know it was a black person, right? Because if it was a white person, you'd see his face everywhere. His Twitter would be out. His address would be out. Where he goes to get his groceries. All that would be public information. Black person, they won't show his face. But there was no media coverage for this. Neither, really. I'm sure the New York Post ran an article, but what was the last television show, understanding that's where most people get their news from, that covered this? And it made me think that, going back to a point that I made a while ago, all these people chasing the racism dragon, it's going to come. This next generation of white kids, man, they are going to be bona fide racist. They are going to be. I'm talking about the little guys right now who are watching their parents washing the feet of black people. That dumb shit that happened last summer. Actually, literally getting on their knees and washing other people's feet, regardless of whether they're black or white. But you add that into it. How about them kneeling and asking forgiveness to these people who they've done nothing to? How about your parent losing a job because of something they tweeted? Probably not even racist, just saying America should look after Americans, and some black person or some brown person saying, hey, that's racist. And your parent loses a job. Or because it came out they voted for Donald Trump. How about the fact that there's now differential treatment under the law? You had a judge in Austin who said, I will throw the book at white people. I will be lenient with black and brown people. Now, granted, this was a white man, but it's not going to matter. It all adds up to the same thing. Imagine being a kid watching all of this happen when you're most impressionable. How about being blamed for everything that's wrong with America and the world? It's always a white person's fault. Something they did, someone they oppressed. How about being hated for being white? How about feeling like you have to apologize simply because of the color of your skin? How about always being the butt of everyone's joke and you not actually being able to make those same jokes back, because then it's racist? How about being called all kinds of names, but you can't return fire because it's racist? How about being killed? Or imagine being the child of one of these people that this man went on the shooting spree for. And then hearing the man say, yeah, I targeted him because he was white. So all those people chasing the racism dragon, it will be coming soon. Because need I remind you, Adolf Hitler rose to power with far less than this. All it took for Adolf Hitler to raise to power was Germany losing a war and essentially being excoriated by the international community, being ostracized by the international community. That's all it took. And then before you know it, they're wearing shiny boots, saying a bunch of weird shit in German. That's an angry language. Everything sounds angry, in fairness, and rounding up and killing a bunch of people. That's all it took for them. Well, we've given this next generation a whole lot more than that. And it goes back to a reference I made in the Black Pawns White King episode. It's not going to be these idiots pushing critical race theory that bear the brunt of this. No, it's going to be you and I, the people in the middle, presumably, the people who don't have a problem with people because of their race, unless they're Mexican. You know? It's going to be the people who are just minding their own business out at the gas station and bang. You know, it's a lot like that, what's that thing called? Newton's Cradle. For those of you who don't know, it's the little contraption, a little widget that people put on their desk with the suspended balls, and you drop the one. There's a picture of it on the thumbnail there, where you hit the one and then it just transfers the motion through and then knocks the other one out. In a lot of ways, it's very parallel to this, because all of the violence, all of the inertia, as you would, is initiated from the extremes. So you notice in Newton's Cradle, what starts the chain of motion, of the chain of events? It's one of the balls at the end. It's not necessarily one of the ones in the middle. But once that is set into motion, it transfers through the ones in the middle until it eventually reaches the other end. And then the other end retaliates in a big way and sends it back through the other way. So in a lot of ways, we're unwilling participants in this. And we will perpetuate it out of really proximity. Walk with me through this. You're at a gas station. You're a black or a brown person. Never really had a crossword to say about white people in general. You may not like one or two, but it's not because they're white. And somebody who's fed up, presumably this child that we were talking about, who is legitimately racist. And at that point, who can blame them? Seriously, logically at that point, all of the things I named to you, how could you blame them? They will have every justification for it. Now, it will still be wrong because it's not a good way to be, but that won't matter at that point. They will literally have logic on their side. And that's why I put those little goofy thumbnails in there of the Klansman on Superman and the Punisher neo-Nazi, because you're making these people look like heroes. At a certain point, normal people in the middle are going to say, you know what? We're tired of taking all these L's. All right, boys, do your thing. I was never we'll turn a blind eye. And it's not that hard to fathom. Look at how people treated Muslims after 9/11. After 9/11, if you were a Muslim, any Muslim, people really didn't want to have anything to do with you. Everybody was giving you the side eye. Everybody was giving you the stink eye. Not everybody, but you understand what I'm saying. And I remember having a conversation with one about it, because I'm admittedly not really a fan. And those are my own personal things. Deployment helped shape that. There was one that I thought was going to try to kill me. And maybe that's a different episode for a different time. But I remember having a conversation. And the guy's like, I just don't understand why we're being blamed for what other people did. And I said, okay, that's fair. But let me ask you this. Have you spoken out about what they did? Well, no. So how are we supposed to know you're not one of them? You see, at a certain point, when you're a member of a group that is perpetuating an ill upon another group or society at large, it behooves you to speak up, if for no other reason but your own preservation. If for no other reason but to delaminate yourself from the mass. If for no other reason but to give people a reason and a hope that no, not everyone's like that. Because I don't care if we're talking about Muslims with terrorism. I don't care if we're talking about women with Me Too. I don't care if we're talking about Latinos with illegal immigration. I don't care if we're talking about white people with white supremacy. And I don't care if we're talking about black people with black supremacy. At a certain point, your silence will be understood and interpreted as compliance. Whether or not that's actually the case. Because again, what are we talking about? We're not talking about the facts. We're talking about people's perception of their own reality. And there is no more sensitive perception. There is not one instance that people take more seriously than their own survival. And as silly as it may seem to you, you have no idea how important that may be to somebody who's teetering on that line. Because you really don't know what people are going through. When you walk up to somebody and that's why I'm usually, I'm very polite to people. Because you don't know what people are going through. And you don't know where people are on that spectrum of breaking. Now, we all know that we all can break. But we don't know where everybody is on that spectrum. Some people are a lot closer than others. And some people are right on that teetering point, and you just don't even know it. And it's not even your fault as to why they got there. But that won't matter. So as I think about this mass shooting, and as I think about the other, it's hard not to go back to, wow, I'll tell you what, black people, we have become the face of all things bad. I mean, seriously, the one thing that we could usually point to and say we don't do, mass shootings. Well, and the only reason that was because of a clever technicality, because they don't count drive-by shootings as mass shootings. Statistically, they don't count them as mass shootings. Now, if they did, well, I think we'd be singing a different tune now, wouldn't we? And if you think about it, there's no reason why drive-by shootings should not be counted as mass shootings. A lot of people get hit usually. This one shooting in Austin, I think they said 13 people got hit. One of them died. It's probably because he was holding the gun sideways. But this is disgusting. And there will be a response to this. I just keep going back to, I can't believe I'm reliving the plot of Birth of a Nation. And that's exactly what it feels like as you watch these people continue to push us closer. Because you know who likes this? Legitimate racists like this. Because it's fodder. It's another thing that they can see. We told you. And eventually something, no matter how crazy it sounds, will become plausible, if for no other reason, but it continues to resonate. I'm reminded of the quote attributed to the infamous Nazi propagandist Joseph Goebbels, who said, if you repeat a lie loud enough and long enough, eventually it becomes truth. And the more we have situations like this, the closer we get to that. I was talking to someone today on my Instagram account, which is at Forever Hog. For those of you who want to follow, it's where you can see some of my weekend masterpieces on the smoker. But anyhow, I was talking to a guy, and he asked me, why are you banging so hard? Why are you taking up for white people? Why are you doing this? This is their fight. This isn't your fight. I said, well, first of all, I don't consider it taking up for white people. I consider it standing for what's right. Calling a spade a spade. I was a little on the nose. He's black on black. But more to his point, He said, it's not our fight, it's their fight. I said, well, what if they had that same mentality about, I don't know, slavery? What if they had that same mentality during the civil rights movement? And he jumped on that and he was like, oh, see, like one of them white boys that was out there marching with the black folks during the civil rights movement. I said, well, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that people who have a strong sense of right and wrong, people who have morals, have stood throughout history, irrespective of their skin color, irrespective of what people would say about them. And, then he proceeded to call me the usual names, Coon, Uncle Tom, all that good stuff. And I said, well, it's interesting, because if we can go back to your analogy, you said that me speaking up about anti-white racism is akin to the white people in the civil rights movement that stood with the blacks, right? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Okay. And you are calling me names and epithets because I'm doing that, right? I mean, you just did. Yeah, well, I said, okay, so who does that make you? See, if I'm the white person who would then have been called, a nigger lover or whatever they called them back then, usually that was the one that did it by other white people. And here I am, and you're referring to me as an Uncle Tom or a Coon. So that would make you the racist white person during the civil rights movement. Oh, so you're on the side of racists. So how does that resonate with you? So it's people like you. You were the person that killed Dr. King. Huh. It was one of your fellow travelers, one of your fellow racists. I'm still waiting for his response, by the way. Don't suspect I'll be getting one. But the point is, perhaps I was mistaken because I thought the civil rights movement was to put an end to racism in all of its faces and features. But apparently to some, it was about wrestling over who controls the right to be racist. I must have missed that. That must be the critical race theory version of the civil rights movement. And don't get me wrong, I'm not afraid to die. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'd rather not die because of some idiot who thinks that people are shooting at him with slingshots from the trees. I'd rather not die for some scammer lesbian who just wants to buy a bunch of mansions and live amongst the people that she said are the enemy. I'd rather not die for some shitty gay actor that wanted to get attention for himself. I'd rather not die for some mediocre NASCAR driver. I'd rather not die for some privileged half and half quarterback that really wasn't even that good. I'd rather die from eating too much steak, too much bacon, bald, fat, high as shit, and face down at the bar of my favorite strip club while my wife thinks I'm at church. Like a real American. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I got for you today. I appreciate everybody tuning in as always. And until the next time, peace.